Hi everyone, welcome back to Newfound Happy Hour. This is Sarah, and this is the last episode of 2025 of season 4. I only have a quick episode today because a lot of things have come up in life recently. There's been some changes with the house that we're building and stuff, and I've been working a bit over the holidays, and of course there's a million social events. But I still did want to do one last episode. My New Year's resolution was to do 12 episodes this year, and this will be episode 12. So I thought what I would do today is recap all the episodes that I did this year. If anyone has never listened to this, this podcast has kind of evolved from people in Newfoundland doing cool things and people that I knew to reaching kind of outside of that and ultimately giving like older sibling advice and big sister energy and just kind of spreading positivity and having just a happy hour to either motivate or inspire or just listen to while you're cleaning up or whatever and feel like a friend is with you. And I've done some episodes on my own, but I've also done episodes with guests. I usually do have guests on. And this year I started doing my episodes on YouTube, so you can watch all episodes, even if they weren't recorded on video. They are all up on YouTube. And then the ones that were in video this year are up on YouTube as well. So yeah, I think what I'm going to do is just read the description for each episode this year and kind of talk about what comes to mind. And if you haven't seen or listened to any of these episodes, this will probably give you a good idea of what the episodes have been like this year and if there's any that you might want to listen to or watch. So I ended season 3 last year with ending 2024 here and just talking about the lessons that I learned throughout 2024. And then the first episode of season 4 is called Starting 2025 Here. And the description is, in the first episode of season 4, I talk about how I started my new year with a juice cleanse and hibernating to prepare for 2025. I gave a review on the juice cleanse, which was a freshy juice cleanse, which I would recommend, long story short, just for a few days. I wouldn't do anything longer than a 3-day cleanse. So I talked about that. And then I also talked about my plans for the year, which included thrifting as much as possible, joining a feminist book club, which was a great time. And we've since stopped since the summer. But I do hope that we pick that up again because that was very educational. And also learning more about Canadian politics and how they relate to companies. I kind of slacked on that, but I will say I did do a couple episodes about politics, especially where we had the election earlier this year. So I was kind of focused on that for a bit. I thought that was really important to learn about. And I also discussed hosting something new, which I just had to read that sentence. I was like, what am I talking about here? But I'm talking about speed dating. So I announced that I was going to start Speed Dating NL, which was a new series of events for the single here in St. John's, beginning with my first event that was February 17th, which is crazy that it's been almost a year now. I started planning that in January and then had that first event in the middle of February. And that has been like a very fulfilling part of life this past year. For anyone who doesn't know, I started hosting speed dating events where people actually do like the 5-minute speed dates where you just talk to someone for 5 minutes and then you move to the next table. And I've been doing that for all age groups between 25 and 65. So definitely in this year, I want to have more events, more locations, and even expand the age groups. I've gotten requests for 65 plus age groups as well. So I'm going to look into that as well. If anyone knows any good locations or anyone has any feedback or ideas on that, I'm always open to hearing about it. It's been so cool and nice meeting people and watching people meet each other and watching not even just like romantic connections, but watching people make friends, make other single friends, meet people through people that they met at speed dating. And yeah, it's been really cool. I also think community is so important, and having just like a single community here or having a place where people can go to meet new people if they have like all their friends and relationships and whatnot, it's been a pretty good thing. So then the second episode of season 4 was V-Day Self-Love with Emily. I was talking to Emily, who I think is about 20 years old. I kind of forget now, but I remember in this episode, I was like, it is so great that you have such a great mindset towards being single and being in a relationship when you're this young. We were talking about how she came to prioritize self-love and how it seems that Gen Zs are learning these lessons earlier than millennials may have. We also talked about love outside of relationships and advice for how to live life being single to the fullest. which is something I know a little bit about. So we had a good conversation. I think I've done a few episodes in the past about Valentine's Day and about like self-love and other types of love outside of relationships, because I think that those are just as important. I don't think a partner should be your everything. If you've listened to any episodes of this podcast, you've probably gotten that vibe. And then I did speed dating and International Women's Day. So that episode, we were talking about relationships, explaining why we still need International Women's Day, why we still need to speak up when it comes to violence against women and injustices. And I went through some statistics about that and like violence against women, specifically here in Newfoundland. So I'm sure some of that probably doesn't surprise anyone, those statistics, but definitely something that we still need to look into. I feel like I have more friends than not who have been in abusive situations, whether that's emotional, physical, whatnot. And unfortunately, it's still pretty prevalent, especially here where we live. So definitely something that needs to be talked about continuously. And I was speaking about things that men and women can do to kind of improve where we're at. So that was that episode. And then in that episode, I also was talking more about speed dating and how it was going. Episode 4 was NL Politics with Matt. So this is before all of the election stuff. I knew that I wanted to learn a bit more about it and kind of share some stuff on that. So in this episode, I was talking with Matt Babb about where to begin when you want to get educated on politics, particularly here in Newfoundland and in Canada. He breaks down leaders at the municipal, provincial, and federal levels and how to handle information you see on social media. So that was a great little episode ahead of the election. And that led into episode 5, which was called Go Vote, and also it's Earth Day. So I was explaining the voting process and where to get information, smartvoting.ca and all of those things, because Election Day was on April 28th. I was also ranting about things I noticed on social media and how most of the time I will speak up when it comes to misinformation or lack of critical thinking. I think we see so much of that on social media. People are so quick to share things, especially when it comes to our local schools or politics or whatever. And if you do like a quick Google search, or if you look on like a school's website or something, you'll see that the things that they're sharing are out of context or are not true or are just lacking, I guess, some nuance. So I was talking about that. And then I was also discussing how a few years back, a pro-life premier in New Brunswick halted funding to Clinic 554, which was a similar clinic to Athena Clinic here in St. John's. And how just because a politician claims that they won't change laws or ban resources when it comes to abortion care doesn't mean that they can't make abortion care less accessible. So that was a point I really wanted to drive home. I had a few men in my DMs earlier this year claiming that conservatives did not want to take away abortion rights. And we know that that is just not true. So that's a good episode to look back on if you're looking into those things. And to end on a lighter note, I went through simple things you can change or adopt to save money, help the environment, and be less wasteful in honor of Earth Day. And then I did a solo episode called Thoughts as of June 2025. And I gave a life update, talked about why I've been so busy around that time of year. I was kind of echoing some sentiments that I was having in the last episode of season 3, just about like reflecting on the year and everything. And so kind of thinking about that again halfway through the year, and how we all need to focus on our wins more and not the things that we don't have or how long it took to get the things that we do. If I'm remembering correctly, I think a lot of that had to do with me finally becoming a homeowner and starting the whole process of building my house. I was 30 years old when that process kind of came to fruition after years of living at home and saving, and it was not an easy road, but it was one that was worth it. So I think that's what I'm talking about in that episode. And then I talked a little bit about the St. John's Pride Parade that was coming up in July. And then on to episode 7 called Single Dads and Speed Dating with Mike Part 1. So I did a 2-parter episode with Mike from the Taking Action podcast. I was actually on his podcast before he was on mine earlier this year. So this is a two-parter episode, just talking about his own experiences. In part one, we were talking about his experience attending speed dating and dating in general as a single dad, talking about how different things are attractive for different people and the importance of compatible lifestyles when it comes to dating. I know when I was on his podcast, we were talking about like just the simple things that seem like they should be a given, but a lot of people are dating people that they don't actually like or enjoy spending time with. So we're talking about that. And then he also gave his take on if a man's job affects his behavior when it comes to relationships as someone who has worked in many different industries. So that was part one with Mike. And then part two was called Different Dating Experiences, where we kind of continued the conversation talking about roles in a relationship, love languages and how they change, and how love languages extend into your friendships and other relationships. We were also talking about becoming more comfortable with your emotions as you age and often prioritizing yourself more, which ironically makes you a better partner. He also gave advice on social media dangers as a certified ethical hacker and software developer and parent, as well as advice for young men on how to be more confident. I think that is some great advice that he gives there. And we ended with trends I noticed when it comes to dating today and how more than just romantic connections come from speed dating NL. We did talk a lot about speed dating and just how interesting of a thing it is and how good of an experience it was to attend it. And then season 4, episode 9, this is also a two-parter. I did this with my friend Janelle. So in part 1, this is called All About ADHD with Janelle. We were talking about major life changes that she made at 30 and how a lot of it related to her ADHD and her diagnosis. She was also talking about how she got diagnosed, how it presents differently in different people. And we were talking a lot about how it affects everyone differently, especially boys and girls and kids and teens and adults. So I think that's very relatable. I know a lot of people are diagnosed with this now. I don't think that it's a new thing. I think we just now have the tools to diagnose and treat it. But it can make some people feel really isolated or just really off, and it's definitely something that needs to be talked about. So that's a great episode. And then in part 2, called Pregame Chats and Hot Takes with Janelle, this is episode 10, we drank a bottle of wine in the first episode, and I think we just continued into the second episode. So this is a less serious conversation for the most part, talking about the contents of my notes app, which include all the karaoke songs that I want to sing. And I have like a 2026 to-do list and a 2027 to-do list. And Janelle's organization of beauty products and TikToks in her phone. She goes on an explanation of how she organizes all of those. Also thoughts on AI, Pixo websites, and hot takes that we noticed over the past few months. I will say, and I think this is what I say in that episode, is that my Pixo website was like no other. It was one of the best, I will say. Mine was up there with like people who are now like photographers and like graphic designers. My Pixo websites were not quite there, but they were impressive for someone with no interest in those things. Fun fact, this could have been a 3-part episode, but as we got towards the end of it, we were really just rambling, which was heavily influenced by wine. So I actually cut out some of the end of it there. But part 2 was honestly just a normal pregame wine chat between us that usually happens before we go out. And then on to episode 11, which was called Color and Confidence with Laura. She owns Lara's Beauty Den and also LBD color analysis. And I have always been interested in color analysis. Those videos always come up on my Instagram and my TikTok. And I think it's so interesting how one shade of a color can make you look so much better and like more even skin tone, and it brightens your eyes or your hair or whatever it is. I always thought that was so interesting. So I got my color analysis done and I recorded the whole thing and did an episode on it. So you can see my color analysis, and I think everyone watching will agree that like the colors that look terrible on me look terrible on me. Dark purple, like an eggplant in particular, is really not my color. Hot pink, really not my color. So I do tend to avoid those for the most part. But yeah, that was cool to actually see. You'll have to watch it to see what what color palette season I am. But before that, I did an interview with Laura. So she was talking about her career as a nail tech and how it led her into doing these color analysis sessions. And she also explained the reasoning behind the session and like why you shouldn't be wearing makeup and why you put your hair back and all these different things. So all of that was pretty interesting. And then that leads us to right now, which I'm literally recording this on New Year's Eve. I don't know if I'll put it out today if I have the time, but this will be the last episode of 2025. I have a lot of things coming up this year that I want to do a lot of episodes on. Some are secrets. I can't really talk about them yet, but I am very excited. There's going to be a lot of stuff happening with the house. As anyone listening, or if you follow me on TikTok, I had a TikTok series this year. I think I have like 34 parts posted right now, house building part 1 through 34, because we actually started building earlier this year and it has been a process and we're doing a lot of it ourselves. So that has been a big part of my year. And then we're hopefully going to be able to move in the spring. Right now we're thinking April, but as we all know, life does not go as planned. So I think there's going to be a few things this year that follow that theme. But as for me, for the next few months, I'm just focusing on finishing those things with the house and making sure that we have everything, that we're ready to move in. And I still have a few episode ideas for next year, which I will hopefully try and do. I think I'm going to be taking a bit of a break, probably January, February, but I'm not sure yet. My work is also pretty busy, so I am busy, which is nothing new. But yeah, it's been a good year. I've met a lot of new people this year, partially in thanks to this podcast and speed dating, which speed dating came from this podcast as well. So we've expanded that. I have a friend in Kelowna doing speed dating, and I have friends who want to do it in other provinces. So that's all in the works. But again, I can't talk about everything just yet. So stay tuned. Have a happy new year. Have a safe New Year's Eve celebration. And I will be posting at some point when I have the time to start this up again. But as for now, I'm going to take a little bit of a break. And thanks for listening. Thanks for participating. Thanks for sharing everything. It has been a very fulfilling year, and it's always been really, I don't know what the word is, almost like therapeutic, or I don't know, putting this podcast out. And it's been so nice. And anytime I have a thought, I just rant about it, or my friends rant about whatever. And it's great. So I'm just very happy and very thankful. And 2025 was great. And I have a feeling that 2026 is going to be even better. So very excited for all the changes to come. And I just want to say, which I've reiterated in a few episodes, is that like for me, these past 2 years, a lot of things have come about. And I feel like it may seem like I have a lot of things, together. But it took a long time. It took most of my 20s being broke and making a lot of mistakes and doing the wrong things. But all those things have led me here. So don't put pressure on yourself if you haven't done that much this year. Don't feel bad about yourself if you have only really survived this year. Some years, and I think I said this a couple years ago, actually, maybe in the first season, just how some years are not the year that you graduate or get engaged or get a new job or move. Some years are just the years that you stay stagnant, and that is okay. So I will leave it there. Thanks again. Happy New Year. Have a great weekend. I don't even know what day of the week it is. It's New Year's Eve. I haven't known what day of the week it is since like December 19th. It's all been a blur since then. So I hope everyone had a good Christmas, and I will see you in 2026.